This bet right here, this one that we're talking about, is way too good to be true. I have zero idea how they're placing this number out there. Take it and take it right now. It's the big game. It's the Super Bowl, and you're looking for some action, some bets, and I got 8. I got 8 player props in this video, and let's break it down. Not now, for you beautiful people, but right now. Bet number 8 is going to be Cam Akers over 55.5 rushing yards. And to be completely honest, I don't even like Cam Akers rushing yards. On a lot of books, it's opening somewhere around 62 to 65. But 55.5 to me is too small. While on the opposite side, 62 to 65 is too much. But I take over 55.5, the lowest I've seen on prizepicks.com. And here's the logic to it. This is going to be the easiest run defense that he has faced so far. He was limited in his first matchup against the Cardinals in the wild card round, right? He only played 44% of the snaps. Then he gets the Bucs defense, then he gets the 49ers defense. Those are two of the better defensive lines and run defenses in the NFL. Now we get Cam Akers as a favorite yet again in a situation where he just needs 55.5 yards. And there are concerns here, like Sony Michel seeing 10 attempts and Akers just 13 in the last game. Cam Akers potentially still being somewhat banged up. Cam Akers being poor in the playoffs so far, maybe a little rusty. There are concerns here. But I like this matchup, and I like it a lot. And all the expectations and all the reports we're getting so far is that Cam Akers is going to be the featured back. I'm expecting 15 attempts here. If we can get 3.5 to 4 yards per carry out of Cam Akers in what is his better matchup and a good offensive line versus defensive line matchup, we take that over 55.5. If you want that number specifically is on PrizePicks. If you find it in the 60s somewhere else, you can take the under and you can try and middle that number. But the over 55.5 is on PrizePicks.com. And by the way, if you or anybody you're watching the game with want a free bet up to $100 for player props or a lot of props, a ton of stuff out there on PrizePicks, special for the Super Bowl, just use the code SAL. My name symbol is that, SAL, PrizePicks.com. It's linked in the description. You get a free bet, and if other people sign up for the first time, they get free bets as well, up to $100. Again, the code SAL. Bet number 7 is a bet I actually really like. It's Joe Mixon under 5 targets. Now, Joe Mixon has played in 3 postseason games, only gone over 5 targets one of those times. And some of the logic may lead you to believe, oh, the Rams have a good pass rush against Joe Burrow. He's going to have to check it down more. And I understand that logic, but that's not what we're seeing. In the game against the Chiefs, where the Chiefs have a solid pass rush, but nowhere near as good as what the Rams are going to support on this defensive line, Joe Mixon sees 3 targets, 3 receptions. He only runs 22 routes. In a game where Joe Burrow is dropping back a lot, Mixon sees his least routes run in the postseason because he was staying into pass protect to chip guys, and then he goes out into his routes. So his routes are just not happening, one, because he's pass blocking in the backfield, or they're being delayed, which means it's harder for him to actually be the first read or somebody that Joe Burrow gets to in his reads. So I take Joe Mixon, who is coming off of a game of just 3 targets, under 5 targets in this one, and where I see those underneath routes going are to the guys who are going to be out in the flats quicker, and that is mainly going to be your Tyler Boyds and Uzomah if he's able to return, which perfectly transitions us into the number 6 bet that I'm looking at right now, and that is Tyler Boyd over 4 receptions. Now again, all of these bets that I'm using, you can find the best odds that you're out there. I'm personally located in Texas, so I'm using PrizePicks. It is legal in Texas, California, New York, some places where actual betting is not, so perfect for you if you're watching this. PrizePicks has Tyler Boyd at 4 receptions. There's some spots where he's at 3.5, some where he's at 4.5. He's at 4 over on PrizePicks, and I'm taking the over there, and you might not see recent production out of Tyler Boyd. You might say, Sal, Tyler Boyd's been terrible, and I've been fading him in DFS and fantasy, daily fantasy sports. I've been fading him. On DraftKings, I haven't been playing him there. I actually like him this week because it's a totally different matchup. Now, in the 3 postseason games, Boyd has gone 4, 2, and 4 receptions. So he's actually never gone over 4 receptions. So if you can get that 3.5 number, he's gone over that 2 out of 3 games, right? But this is the big difference here. In the first matchup against the Raiders, they play 2 high safeties. The slot is not somewhere you prioritize, or they play 1 high safety. And when you play 1 high safety, it means you're going to have one-on-ones on the outside. So the slot's not as much of a priority. In the second week, they get the Titans, poor outside cornerbacks. You attack those guys. Boyd in the slot, not the guy you're going for. And then last week against the Chiefs, they had banged up outside corners. Fenton was hurt. Ward was hurt. Even Matthew in the second safety unit was hurt. And then you had in the slot the healthiest and probably best cornerback on the Chiefs, L'Jarius Sneed, on Tyler Boyd. Boyd still had 4 catches on 4 targets, only 19 yards, a lot of underneath routes. We don't care about the yards for this prop bet. I want the targets, I want the receptions, and that's where I think he's going to get them in this matchup. What is different about the Rams is they're going to play 2 high safeties. When you play 2 high safeties, it makes it harder to attack one-on-ones because there aren't any, or there's not that often, on the outsides for your wide receivers. And if I personally believe that Joe Mixon, like we saw in the last game, is going to have to stay into block or chip block a little bit more before getting out into his routes, CJ Uzomah and Tyler Boyd, or whoever starts, Drew Sample if it's Sample over Uzomah if he's too hurt, whoever it is, the tight end and the slot receiver, Tyler Boyd, are going to be guys who get those short underneath passes. And I think that Tyler Boyd is going to have enough on those. His targets also, it's not a bet in this video, but we can add it in. His targets, if you see them on PrizePicks around 4.5, 5, That's something else also to consider going over on. I think this is a game where you see 5 or 6 receptions and a big Tyler Boyd game. Might not come up in the yardage, 100-plus yards, but a 5-6 catch game for somewhere in the 50s to 60 yards will be massive for the Bengals to move the chains. So those are bets 8, 7, and 6 in ranking order. Let's get in now to the top 5. Again, before we do, use the code SAL on PrizePicks.com. You personally, you get a free bet up to $100, and you're going to be watching the Super Bowl with some people at the bar, at a party, whatever it might be. Let them know as well, especially if you're in the states of New York, Texas, California, some states where it might not actually be legal to sports bet just yet in your region or your state. It is for this because it's fantasy based, quote unquote. Bet number 5 is one that I honestly might push all the way up to like 2 or 3 because I like this one a lot. Odell, OBJ, under 8.5 targets on Prize Picks. I like this number a lot. Look, I know he had 11 targets in the last game. Totally different matchup. They lined him up in a position against San Francisco, who has a weak secondary, weak cornerback play, and they said, you go be the X receiver. That's the first time they did this all year. It was a matchup thing. They put him out on the outside to win his one-on-one matchups. He did. He had a big game, 100 yards, his best game in probably years. It's going to be different this week. The secondary of the Bengals is solid. Eli Apple, as much as people want to joke about him, he gets burned here and there. He's been solid this year, like solid, right? And you see on the opposite side, Owuze, the former Dallas Cowboy, has been above average. Good. Not great. Close, but good. So when this starts to become the case, you have to get a little bit more creative. And I'm not saying that Odell can't have a 9 or 10 target game. We know he's capable of it. But that was the first time that we've seen this guy go over that number in a very long time. The only other time he's gone over 8.5 targets this year was week 10 when he joined the Rams against the Packers on short notice. Other than that, it's a lot of 5, 6, a lot of 7 and 8 lately. But he had that 11 target game last week. I think it was matchup based. I actually basically know it was matchup based the way that they utilized him. I'm taking the under 8.5 here. Still can have a good game. Still can have a 6, 7 catch game, but we're taking under 8.5 targets on OBJ. Bet number 4 really doesn't make any sense to me at all. It's the kicker who has not missed in the postseason yet. He's been 12 for 12 in the postseason. Evan McPherson, over 1.5 field goals on Prize Picks in every single playoff round so far. And on the season, he's only behind Justin Tucker in field goal accuracy, who's in the exact same division as him. And these dudes are fantastic because they play a lot of their games in the cold in Cleveland and in Baltimore and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. And at this point, you probably know how good this guy is. He's 4 for 4 in each game so far. The Cincinnati Bengals will attempt field goals. They're not the analytical. I mean, they go for 4th downs, but they're not going for the 4th and 7s. If they're in field goal range, they trot him out there, even if it's a 55-yard field goal. They let this guy kick field goals. He's 4 of 4 in each game so far. I don't want to overthink this one. If this was set at 2, 2.5, okay, it's a Super Bowl, maybe you go for it a little bit more. They trust this kicker. If there's 3 points on the board there and they're not down 14 or 21 late in the game and have to go for it, he's going out there and he's jotting out there and kicking a field goal. You might have this in the first half. Over 1.5 field goals seems way too good to be true. This bet right here, this one that we're talking about, is way too good to be true. I have zero idea how they're placing this number out there. Take it and take it right now. So now we get into the top 3, and we haven't talked too much about the quarterbacks yet, and we're going to. It's a teaser. It's not number 3, but it's going to be those top 2. We're going to talk quarterbacks. Number 3 is kind of a continuation. We said Joe Mixon under 5 targets. I also want him under 4 receptions. So I took Mixon under 5 targets. Correlate that together if you can. If you can't do it in the exact same bet because your book doesn't let you or Prize Picks won't let you, just do it in another bet. Under 4 receptions. Same exact reasoning here for Mixon. Think he gets out into his progressions of his routes slower. Think he runs less routes overall to be able to go in there and pass block. So that being said, just like we said, under 5 targets, under 4 receptions for Mixon. That's number 3. And our top 2 are going to be attached to Joe Burrow, the man of the hour, the man who shouldn't be here, the most sacked quarterback in the regular season, first time ever, the guy who sacked the most in the regular season is in the Super Bowl. Why? Because offensive line play matters a lot, and somehow he's been Houdini. He's been getting through his progressions. He's been getting the ball out quick. He's been navigating the pocket like I don't even know how and keeping his team alive. Like 15 rush yards in the last game or so, maybe the biggest 15 rush yards of his career, probably was the biggest yards of his career. So these top 2 bets are going to surface and circle really around Joe Burrow. And number 2, since we just talked about rush yards, is going to be his over rush yards. On most books, it's set around 12.5, 13, 11.5 if you're lucky right now. Prize Picks, it's set at 9.5. Makes no sense. Burrow is coming off of a game with 25 rushing yards, and it's a situation where he's going to face more pressure than he did last week, which was more pressure than he did the week before, which was about the same pressure as it was, probably more than the week before. Each week, the pressure has been increasing on this dude. He's been pressured on over 36% of his dropbacks so far. It's insane. It's terrible. And now he's facing a team that has generated the most pressures in the postseason. 16 for Von Miller, 16 for Aaron Donald, 12 so far for Leonard Floyd. It's just not a good spot for Joe Burrow. He's going to get sacked. He's going to get hit and pressured. And a couple times he's going to take off and evade those, and he's going to be able to run up the middle or to the outside. And maybe he gets 5 yards, or maybe he gets 10, or maybe he gets all of that 9.5. So I like Joe Burrow. The 12.5, I'll be honest, that is a lot I paused on that, and then I saw Prize Picks offering at 9.5, so I took that. Again, you can take a free bet up to $100. Use the code SAL. Prize Picks is doing a bonus for the Super Bowl, and they'll have some other promotions. I'm sure they'll add like a Matthew Stafford over a half a passing yard or something along those lines, so keep an eye out for that. Obviously, we're not mentioning it here because as of this recording, it is not yet out, but it will be mentioned in videos in the coming days. And the final bet that I like, my number one bet that I like so far is Joe Burrow under 36.5 pass attempts. If you can find that at 37 or better, even better, but Prize Picks has it at 36.5. I like the under on that. So if you look at the recent logs, you're going to see, he threw for 38 times against the Chiefs. Okay, well, that was a game where he was forced to throw late in the game. It's not always going to be the case. Now, lately, it has been like that, right? Twice against the Chiefs, you're seeing Joe Burrow forced to throw late in the game. So people, Joe Burrow, he throws all the time. And they have been unlocking him a little bit in the second half of the year in the postseason, of course. But this is a team and a player that they would like to not make him throw that much. 37 times against Tennessee. 34 times in the first round of the playoffs, he ended up throwing against the Raiders in a game that was actually close. I think you see this game slow down a little bit. The biggest reason why is whether it's short passes, more to a Tyler Boyd, more to a Zoma, this thinking that I'm telling you about, or just running the ball in general more with Samaje Perine for 25% of the time and mainly Joe Mixon, is going to lead to a situation where they are taking time off the clock. And on the opposite side of this one, the Rams are fine throwing the ball. 23 rush attempts between their running backs last week. Maybe Darrell Henderson comes back this week. You saw 20-plus rush attempts the week before, even though he fumbled twice for Cam Akers. The week before that, you saw Cam Akers and Sony Michel combined for 20-plus. Like, they're going to keep the clock moving. So if we could avoid like a pick six, which Matthew Stafford is known to do, but Joe Burrow holds onto the ball. He's accurate. And Stafford in the postseason has been very accurate, 78% true completion percentage. If we could avoid something along those lines where it's going to force Joe Burrow on the opposite side, now they're down 14, now they're down 10, to have to throw more. If we can avoid something like that and this game stays close within that 4 to 4.5 point spread that you're seeing Vegas set out there, I think you see them stick to a more balanced approach. I think you see a Joe Burrow game closer to 30 to 32 attempts, as long as it's not one where he has to be playing from behind all game. I take him under 36.5 pass attempts. So those are my top 8 player props. And obviously, we might add more in the week. We're going to have a full DFS breakdown of the entire Super Bowl, all the matchups. So even if you're not playing DFS, which you should, there's a $6 million prize pool and a $4 million prize pool. So we'll have a video for that later in the week. Projections, ranks, my ownership tools, my favorite plays, all that stuff is going to be below on Patreon. We'll have my final favorite lineup construction. We'll have that video out later in the week on Wednesday. A betting video, like a final betting video, either add more props here, the overall game log, the total, some specialty props, super draft video, maybe that one, dude, and then the live stream on Sunday. So thank you for tuning in. There is the top 8 props that I like for the Super Bowl right now. Go get them. PrizePicks.com, code SAL, free bet up to $100. You all rock. I'll see you when I see you, gang. See you in the rest of the videos this week. Peace out, gang.